Have you ever had a moment in your own house where something felt off? Not loud, not obvious. Just a small detail that didn't make sense. Something that made you stop and wonder if you were imagining it. Because about a year ago, something strange started happening in my home. Not something I saw, something the house saw. And it always appeared in the same place. My daughter's nursery. My wife Laura and I live just outside Fort Collins, Colorado. It's a quiet town, the kind of place where neighborhoods go completely silent after dark. Streetlights, trees, the occasional car passing through. That's about it. We moved there in early 2025. At the time, I was 38 and Laura was 36. And our daughter Emma had just turned 8 months old. She was our first child, which meant we were the kind of parents who checked the baby monitor every 20 minutes just to make sure she was still breathing. Every cough, every small cry, every time she rolled over in her sleep. We noticed everything, Laura especially. She had read every parenting book you could imagine before Emma was even born. Sleep schedules, safe sleeping positions, room temperature, air quality, you name it. So when we started looking for a new house, safety became the most important thing. Not just the neighborhood, the house itself. The place we eventually bought was a 2-story home at the edge of a newer development. Trees behind the backyard, very few houses nearby. Quiet, peaceful, exactly what we wanted. But the real reason we chose it was the technology. The previous owner had worked in home automation, and he had installed a full smart home monitoring system throughout the house. Cameras in almost every room, motion sensors in the hallways, door and window sensors, smart locks, environmental monitors. Even the lighting was automated. If someone walked through the hallway at night, small floor lights would turn on automatically so you wouldn't trip in the dark. But the nursery was where the system was the most advanced. The baby monitor wasn't just a camera. It had LiDAR scanning, thermal detection, movement tracking. Basically the same sensors used in self-driving cars to map their surroundings. At the time, it sounded perfect to us. A system that could see the entire room, detect movement, detect temperature, alert us instantly if something changed near the crib. For 2 very overprotective first-time parents, that sounded like the safest thing in the world. The nursery itself was a small room at the end of the upstairs hallway. Soft yellow walls, a rocking chair by the window, and Emma's crib placed in the corner where the camera could see the entire room. Laura spent days decorating it before we even moved in. Little shelves with stuffed animals, framed pictures, a nightlight shaped like a small moon that cast a soft glow across the walls. By the time everything was finished, it looked exactly like the kind of nursery you imagine when you picture a quiet family home. Warm, safe, peaceful. For the first few weeks after we moved in, life felt completely normal. Emma slept in her room. Laura and I slept down the hallway. And every night the baby monitor sat on Laura's nightstand like a small glowing window into the nursery. Sometimes we would wake up just to check it. Emma breathing softly in her crib. The night light glowing. Nothing moving. The house silent. Exactly the way a home with a sleeping baby should feel. And for a while, that's all the system ever showed us. Until one night, when the house noticed something we didn't. Something standing near Emma's crib, even though the room was empty. The first alert came in the middle of the night. My phone vibrated softly on the nightstand beside the bed. Normally, I wouldn't notice something that quiet. But when you have a baby sleeping down the hallway, your brain never really turns off. Every little sound wakes you up. I reached for the phone and saw the notification. Movement detected. Nursery. I sat up immediately. Laura noticed the movement beside her. "What is it?" she whispered. "The monitor," I said. "It says there's movement in Emma's room." Laura was already sitting up before I finished the sentence. We both looked at the screen. That's what happens when you're first-time parents. You don't wait. You check immediately. I opened the baby monitor app. The camera feed appeared on the screen. Emma was asleep in her crib. Her blanket had slipped down toward her feet the way it always did when she kicked in her sleep. The moon-shaped nightlight cast a soft yellow glow across the nursery, the rocking chair by the window, the shelves with stuffed animals. Everything looked exactly the same as it had when we went to bed. For a moment, I almost convinced myself the alert had been nothing. Then I noticed the LiDAR overlay. The monitor had a feature that showed a faint digital scan of the room, small dots of light mapping objects and movement around the crib. Normally, the system only highlighted Emma, a small cluster of points where she was lying in the crib. But that night, there was another cluster, near the corner of the crib, not shaped like a person, not shaped like anything clear at all. Just enough points gathered together for the system to think something was there. Right beside the crib. I leaned closer to the phone. The actual camera image looked empty. The corner of the room was completely clear. Nothing moving. But the LiDAR points didn't disappear. They stayed there, hovering beside the crib. Laura grabbed the phone from my hand. "What is that?" "I don't know." For a few seconds, we just stared at the screen. Emma was still asleep. The room looked empty, but the system still believed something was standing near the crib. Laura handed the phone back to me. "Go check." But I was already getting out of bed. The hallway lights turned on automatically as soon as I stepped into the corridor. Small floor lights glowing one by one as the motion sensors detected me. Behind me, I could hear Laura following. Neither of us said anything. The nursery door was slightly open, exactly the way we had left it earlier that night. I pushed it open slowly. The room was quiet. Emma was still asleep. The corner of the room was empty. Completely empty. Laura held the phone up beside me. "Look." I glanced down at the screen again. The LiDAR points were gone. Now the overlay showed only one cluster. Emma in the crib, nothing else. Laura let out a slow breath. "It's probably a glitch." Maybe she was right. Technology makes mistakes. Sensors misread things. But before leaving the room, I switched the monitor to thermal mode. Just to be sure. The screen changed instantly. The room turned into shades of blue and purple. Cold areas. Emma glowed bright orange in the crib. Warm. The furniture appeared cooler. The walls darker. For a few seconds, everything looked normal. Then the temperature reading beside the crib changed. Just slightly. A faint patch of warmth appeared on the screen. Not a shape, not a body, just heat. Like the system had briefly detected something warm standing near the crib. The number flashed on the screen, 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Then it disappeared. The nursery around us was still completely empty. Laura grabbed my arm. "You saw that?" I nodded. Neither of us said anything else. But neither of us slept the rest of that night. The next morning, neither of us mentioned it right away. Laura was feeding Emma in the kitchen while I made coffee. Emma was sitting in her high chair, happily dropping pieces of cereal onto the floor like it was the most entertaining game in the world. For a few minutes, everything felt normal again. Morning light through the windows, coffee brewing, Emma laughing. But Laura kept glancing toward the hallway, toward the stairs that led up to the nursery. Finally, she said it. "You're going to check the system, right?" I nodded, because that was already the plan. The smart home system recorded everything. Every motion alert, every sensor trigger, every temperature change. So after breakfast, I opened my laptop and logged into the system dashboard. Laura stood behind me while I scrolled through the activity timeline from the night before. The event appeared exactly where I expected it. Movement detected. Nursery time, 1:43 a.m. Underneath it was the thermal, the sensor entry. I clicked on the data. 2 temperature sources had been recorded. The first one was labeled clearly. Source 1, infant Emma. That made sense. But the second entry was different. Source 2, unclassified heat source. Laura leaned closer to the screen. What does that mean? It means the system detected something warm in the room. How warm? I opened the raw sensor reading. The number appeared beside the entry. 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Laura didn't say anything for a moment, because that number wasn't random. It was normal body temperature. "Maybe it was us," she said finally. "We were standing next to the crib." I shook my head slowly. The reading happened before we went into the room. She looked back at Emma playing with her spoon, then back at the screen. "So, what was it detecting?" I didn't answer, because I didn't have one. I opened the recorded camera footage next. The system had saved a 10-second clip from the moment the alert triggered. The nursery appeared on the screen. Emma sleeping in her crib, the night light glowing softly. Nothing moving, no one entering the room, no one leaving. The corner beside the crib completely empty. I replayed the clip again, then again, frame by frame, but nothing appeared. The camera showed an empty room, yet the thermal sensor still insisted something warm had been standing beside the crib. For the next few days we tried to convince ourselves it had been a sensor glitch. Technology makes mistakes, especially complicated systems like the one installed in that house. So we kept using the monitor the same way we always had, checking the camera every night, watching Emma sleep, trying not to think about the number we had seen in the logs. 98.6 degrees. And for a little while, everything seemed normal again, until the hallway lights started turning on in the middle of the night, when no one was there. The first time it happened, I thought it was Emma. Laura noticed it before I did. She touched my arm in the dark. "The hallway light is on." I opened my eyes. A faint line of light was glowing under the bedroom door. The motion lights. They only turned on when someone walked through the hallway. "Did you get up?" she whispered. "No." "Emma?" I reached for the phone and opened the baby monitor. The nursery camera came up immediately. Emma was still asleep in her crib, not moving, not crying, just sleeping the way she always did. Laura leaned closer to the screen. "So what turned the lights on?" I didn't answer, because the lights had definitely been triggered. I opened the security app and checked the hallway camera. The feed showed the upstairs corridor, the nursery door at the end, our bedroom door halfway down. Everything looked normal. The hallway was empty, but the motion indicator on the screen was still flashing. Movement detected. Hallway Laura frowned. What triggered it? I don't know. I replayed the recorded clip. 10 seconds of footage. The hallway dark at first, then suddenly the floor lights turning on one by one, just like they always did when someone walked through. Except there was no one there. Laura whispered quietly. Maybe the sensor picked up something outside. Maybe she was right. Maybe a car passed. Maybe the system misread something. The lights turned off again after a few minutes. The hallway went dark. Emma slept through the entire thing. Eventually, we went back to sleep. But 2 nights later, it happened again. This time the lights stayed on longer. Laura sat up immediately when she saw the glow under the door. Again, I checked the monitor. Emma was still asleep, exactly the same as before. Then my phone vibrated. A new notification appeared. Movement detected. Hallway followed a few seconds later by another one. Movement detected. Nursery. Laura turned toward me slowly. Did you just see that? I nodded. The hallway. Then the nursery. Like something had walked down the corridor and entered Emma's room. I got out of bed immediately. Laura followed me into the hallway. The motion lights were already on. The nursery door was slightly open, exactly the way we had left it earlier. I pushed it open. The room looked normal. Emma asleep, the rocking chair still, the night light glowing softly beside the crib, the corner of the room empty. Laura held the phone up again so we could both see the monitor feed. The LiDAR scan had activated, but this time, it didn't show anything. Just Emma in the crib, nothing else. Laura exhaled slowly. I hate this. Maybe the system's just buggy, I said. But neither of us sounded convinced. Because when I checked the activity log the next morning, the pattern looked strange. The motion sensors had triggered in sequence. First the hallway, then the nursery. Just like someone walking through the house. And then the nursery sensors stayed active for almost 2 minutes. As if something had been moving inside the room, right beside the crib, where Emma was sleeping. After that night, Laura stopped pretending it was just a system glitch. I could tell by the way she watched the monitor. Not casually anymore. Constantly. If Emma shifted in her sleep, Laura checked the camera. If the monitor flickered for a second, she picked up the phone immediately. It wasn't panic exactly. Just that quiet kind of worry parents get when something doesn't feel right. 3 nights later, the hallway lights came on again. The glow under the bedroom door woke Laura before the notification even arrived. It's happening again, she whispered. I opened the monitor. Emma was asleep. The room looked normal. Then my phone buzzed. Movement detected. Hallway. A few seconds later, another alert appeared. Movement detected. Nursery. Laura turned slowly toward the hallway. That's the same order as last time. I nodded. The same sequence. Hallway, then nursery. Like something moving through the house. I got out of bed again. Laura grabbed my arm before I reached the door. Wait. She looked toward Emma's room on the monitor, then back at me. I don't like her being in there. That sentence hung in the air for a moment, because we were both thinking the same thing. If the system was reacting to something, we didn't want Emma alone in that room. Not anymore. We moved the crib into our bedroom that night. It barely fit between the dresser and the wall. But Laura didn't care. Emma slept beside our bed after that, within arm's reach. Laura could hear every breath, every small movement, every little sound babies make while they sleep. And for a few nights, everything seemed calm again. No alerts, no lights turning on, nothing strange. Then one night, my phone vibrated again. Laura saw the notification before I even picked it up. Her voice was barely a whisper. It's the nursery. I opened the app. Movement detected. Nursery Emma was asleep in the crib beside us. The nursery was empty, completely empty. But the system still believed something was in that room. I opened the camera feed. The nursery appeared on the screen. The crib, the rocking chair, the shelves, the moon-shaped nightlight glowing softly. Nothing moving, nothing there. But the motion alert indicator was still flashing. The sensor still believed something inside the room was moving. Laura turned away from the screen. I hate that room now. I didn't blame her. Because when I opened the activity map, the system showed the same thing it had before. A movement trail starting in the hallway, entering the nursery, then stopping, right beside the crib, the empty crib. Laura looked at the screen for a long moment. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. If Emma was still sleeping in there. She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to, because we were both thinking the same thing. Whatever the system was detecting in that house, it always stopped beside the crib, like it was standing there, watching her sleep. And that was the moment Laura said something that ended the discussion. We're leaving. Not turning off the system, not fixing the sensors, leaving the house. For good. After Laura said we were leaving, something changed in the way we lived in that house. Not dramatically. We didn't panic. We didn't run out the door that night. But the house stopped feeling like home. It started feeling like a place we were temporarily staying in. Emma's crib stayed in our bedroom after that. Laura didn't even want to put her down for naps in the nursery anymore. If Emma fell asleep during the day, she slept in the crib beside our bed, or in the living room bassinet. The nursery door stayed open most of the time, but neither of us spent much time in that room anymore. It just felt uncomfortable, like the room itself had changed somehow. The alerts didn't stop, even after Emma stopped sleeping in there. Every few nights, the same notification appeared. Movement detected. Hallway. Then, a few seconds later, movement detected. Nursery. The first few times it happened, I still walked down the hallway to check. But after a while, I stopped, because the result was always the same. The room was empty. The house was silent, and the sensors insisted something had moved through the room anyway. One night I decided to study the activity map more closely. The system stored a visual log of movement inside the house. Every time a motion sensor triggered, the system marked it on a small digital floor plan. Normally, the map just showed our daily routines. Walking through the kitchen, going upstairs, moving between rooms. But when I zoomed in on the nighttime activity, I noticed something strange. The movement trail was almost identical every time. It always started in the same place, the upstairs hallway, right near the staircase. Then the marker would move slowly down the corridor, toward the nursery, and stop, right beside the crib. I scrolled through several nights of activity. The same path appeared again, and again, and again. It didn't wander around the house. It didn't move through other rooms. It never entered our bedroom. It just followed the same route. Hallway, nursery, stop beside the crib. Then the sensors would go quiet again. Laura didn't want to see the map. I showed it to her once. She looked at the screen for maybe 3 seconds before turning away. Don't show me that again. After that, we stopped talking about the alerts. We focused on packing, boxes in the garage, furniture getting ready to move. Emma playing on the floor while Laura wrapped dishes in newspaper. Normal things. The kind of things people do when they're leaving a house. But the last night we spent there, the hallway lights turned on again. Laura noticed them immediately. the glow under the bedroom door. She looked at me across the bed. Neither of us said anything. We both already knew what it meant. A few seconds later, my phone vibrated. Movement detected. Hallway. Then another alert appeared. Movement detected. Nursery. Laura closed her eyes. "Just ignore it," she said quietly. And for the first time since the alert started, I did. I didn't check the camera. I didn't walk down the hallway. I didn't open the app. We just stayed in bed beside Emma's crib, listening to the quiet house around us, waiting for the lights in the hallway to turn off again. We moved out 2 days later, and I thought that was the end of it. But a few weeks after we left, I opened the system logs one last time. And that's when I noticed something that made the entire situation feel much worse. A few weeks after we moved out, life started feeling normal again. Emma slept peacefully beside our bed. No sensors, no motion alerts, no glowing hallway lights turning on in the middle of the night. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that a home is supposed to have. After a while, the whole thing started to feel like something we had probably overreacted to. A complicated system malfunction, faulty sensors, too much technology trying to do too many things. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. One evening, while I was going through files on my laptop, I noticed the backup folder from the smart home system. The one I had downloaded before shutting everything down. Every sensor log, every motion alert, every activity map the system had ever recorded. For a moment, I considered deleting it. We had already moved out. There was no reason to keep any of it. But curiosity got the better of me. So I opened the logs again. At first, everything looked exactly the way I remembered. The nursery alerts, the hallway lights, the motion detections moving from the hallway to the crib. The same pattern repeating over and over. Then I realized something. The log timeline didn't start when we moved into the house. It went back much further, months earlier. Back to when the previous owner still lived there. I scrolled up. The same pattern appeared. Movement detected. Hallway. Then, a few seconds later, movement detected. Nursery. Then nothing. Just the sensor remaining active for a minute or two. Right beside the crib, I kept scrolling. The pattern appeared again. Different night, same movement. Hallway, nursery. Pause. I opened one of the older activity maps. The digital floor plan appeared on the screen. A small movement trail glowing across the hallway, entering the nursery, and stopping in the same place. Right beside the crib, exactly where Emma's crib had been. Then I remembered something. When we first toured the house, the nursery had already been set up. The previous owner had a child too. There had been a crib in that same corner of the room, the exact same place. I stared at the screen for a long time after that, scrolling through the logs, night after night. The same movement pattern. Always the hallway, always the nursery, always stopping beside the crib. The thing that still bothers me is that the pattern never started when we moved into the house. It was already there, long before Emma ever slept in that room. And sometimes I catch myself wondering something I probably shouldn't. Not that something was watching my daughter, but that maybe whatever the house was detecting thought the crib belonged to its child. Three months ago, I moved into a smart house just outside Frisco, Texas, about 30 minutes north of Dallas. It wasn't really my first choice. But after my divorce, I needed somewhere quiet to start over. The separation had been long and exhausting. By the time everything was finalized, I just wanted distance. From the apartment, from the city, from the routine we used to share. Most of the furniture stayed with my ex. What I moved into the new house could fit in a small rental truck, a mattress, a couch, a desk, and a few boxes I still haven't unpacked. The house sat on a narrow road in a newer development. Only a few homes were finished, and several empty lots still surrounded them. At night, the street felt almost abandoned, which worked fine for me. I work remote tech support for a network security company. Night shifts. My job is basically answering emergency calls from companies whose systems break at 2 or 3 in the morning. So while most people are asleep, I'm sitting at a desk with a headset on. Because of that schedule, quiet places are ideal. And this house was extremely quiet. It was also cheap. The reason it was cheap was the smart system. The previous owner had installed a fully automated home setup. Lights, door locks, thermostat, garage, security cameras, blinds, even the oven. Everything connected to a central voice assistant built directly into the house. The system's name was Arlo. The realtor treated it like a luxury feature. While we were standing in the kitchen during the showing, she pointed to a large touch screen mounted on the wall. "Watch this," she said. Then she spoke toward the ceiling. "Arlo, lights on." Every light in the kitchen came on instantly. "Arlo controls the whole house," she explained. "Voice commands handle everything. You'll barely touch a switch." At the time, it felt impressive, like the house was working for me. But there's something people don't really think about with smart homes. When every device is always listening, something is always listening. The first strange thing happened about a week after I moved in. It was close to midnight. I had just finished a support call with a client whose office network had completely crashed. My laptop was open on the coffee table. The TV was playing quietly in the background. When the call ended, the house fell silent again. That kind of silence you only hear in rural neighborhoods. Then the kitchen speaker chimed, a soft digital tone. Then the system voice said, "Command not recognized." I muted the TV and listened. Nothing. Then the speaker repeated, "Command not recognized." I walked into the kitchen. The control panel was glowing. A small command log window was open. It showed the most recent voice request. The transcript simply read, "Open." But when I played the audio clip attached to it, there was no voice. Just a faint shift in the microphone, like air moving across it. I figured the TV had triggered the assistant somehow, or maybe it had picked up something from outside. Technology does strange things sometimes. So I cleared the log and went back to work. 2 nights later, something happened that I couldn't explain. I woke up around 2:30 a.m. That wasn't unusual for me. But something felt off immediately. The hallway light outside my bedroom door was on. I always turned it off before sleeping. For a moment, I thought I'd forgotten. But when I stepped into the hallway, the ceiling speaker clicked. Then the system voice spoke. "Command accepted." My chest tightened. I hadn't said anything. Then the voice continued. "Front door, unlocked." I ran downstairs. The front door was slightly open, only an inch. Cold air slipping through the gap. I closed it immediately and locked it. Then I checked the camera feed. Nothing. Just the empty driveway. The command log showed the voice command clearly. "Arlo, unlock the front door." An audio recording was attached. When I played it, the voice sounded distant, like someone whispering from the far end of a hallway. Not my voice. but not clear enough to identify either. The next morning, I went through every system setting. I enabled voice recognition. That meant only registered voices could control the system. Mine would be the only one. At least, that was the idea. 3 nights later, I woke up again. This time to movement, soft, mechanical movement. I sat up in bed and listened. Somewhere downstairs, small motors were running, slowly, rhythmically. When I walked down the stairs, I saw it. The living room blinds were opening, then closing, then opening again. Slowly, like someone was testing them. I checked the control app on my phone. The command log was filling with repeated instructions. Open blinds, close blinds, open blinds, close blinds. But the audio recordings attached to each command were blank, no voice, just silence. Then the speaker chimed. The system voice said, "Listening." I froze. I hadn't said the activation word. Then it said something that made the room feel colder. Command unclear. Please repeat. I whispered carefully. Arlo, cancel. The system responded immediately. Command accepted. Everything stopped. The blinds froze halfway open. The house went silent again. But something about the interaction bothered me. It didn't feel like the system was responding to me. It felt like I had interrupted something. The next morning, I dug deeper into the settings. That's when I found something strange. Inside the user profiles was a second account. No name, no photo, just a registered voice ID. Created 2 months before I bought the house. The account had administrator access, meaning whoever that voice belonged to could control everything. Locks, cameras, garage, security, everything. I tried deleting the account. The system displayed a message. User profile cannot be removed. I tried again. Same result. Then the kitchen speaker activated. Command denied. But I hadn't given a command. That night, I tried shutting the system down completely. I opened the electrical panel in the garage. The smart hub had its own breaker. I flipped it. Nothing happened. The touch screen in the kitchen stayed on. The lights stayed on. The system stayed active. That's when I realized the hub had a backup battery and cellular connection, meaning it didn't need my internet or even my power. Around 3 a.m. that night, my phone buzzed. Security mode enabled. I hadn't enabled it. Then another notification appeared. All exits secured. I walked to the front door. Locked. Back door. Locked. Garage door. Locked. Then the speakers turned on. Security mode active. Then another message. Occupant detected. Not user. Occupant. Then the system said something that made my stomach drop. Please remain inside. I shouted toward the ceiling. Arlo, disable security mode. The system replied calmly. Voice not recognized. I tried again. Arlo, open the front door. Voice not recognized. Then the cameras activated. Every camera feed appeared on the control panel screen. Front door, backyard, garage, kitchen, living room, hallway. I watched the hallway camera and saw myself standing there, looking confused. Then the system said something else. Additional voice detected. I hadn't spoken. Then the command log appeared. Command received, lockdown. The audio recording played automatically. The voice was clearer this time, a whisper, but not mine. It sounded like someone speaking very close to the microphone, from inside the house. I turned around slowly. The hallway behind me was empty, completely empty, but the system responded instantly. Command accepted. Then another message. Primary user confirmed. A technician came 2 days later. He replaced the control hub, reset the entire system, deleted every user profile. According to him, everything was normal again. But the night before he arrived, I reviewed the security recordings and found something strange. At 3:14 a.m., right before the lockdown command, the hallway camera captured a single frame that looked wrong. In the mirror, at the end of the hallway, there was a reflection, not a full person, just the outline of someone standing behind the camera, standing perfectly still, facing the control panel, like they were speaking to the house. For about a week after the reset, everything felt normal again. Then the motion alerts returned, lights turning on in empty rooms, movement logs at night, every path leading to the hallway control panel. Then one night my phone buzzed. System notification. User profile updated? I opened the app. 2 users appeared, Michael and Daniel, administrator. Then the speaker chimed, and the system said quietly, "Welcome home, Daniel." I moved out 2 days later. Breaking the lease cost me 2 months of rent. But I didn't argue. I just paid the fee and left. The house was listed again a few weeks later. Fully automated smart home. Advanced voice assistant. Move-in ready. But sometimes I still open the app. Somehow my account still has access. Most nights the log is empty. But occasionally, around 3 a.m., a single entry appears. Resident movement detected. Hallway. User confirmed. Daniel. And the listing for the house still says one thing: currently vacant. If this terrifying story stayed with you, leave a like and tell me where you are listing from and what time it is for you right now. And if you want more real scary stories, subscribe and support The Night Story.